tonight, the reason why you are here is to hear about fascinating facts for feet and footwear. We've all kind of struggled with trying to find the right footwear for whatever outdoors activity we're involved in. Our presenter, Tom Bloom, is a Rover member, a relatively new Rover member, and he currently works at REI as a footwear sales specialist. He spent his career in sporting goods with a specialty in footwear as a manager and a sales specialist for both independent stores and big national chains. Tom doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He's backpacked and hiked the Superior Hiking Trail, Isle Royale, Black Hills, Pictured Rocks, Rocky Mountain National Park, Appalachian Trail, Rainier, Blue Ridge Mountains, Grand Canyon, Zion, the Galápagos Islands, and Machu Picchu. So Tom is going to tell us everything we always wanted to know about footwear. Take it away, Tom.
So the first section of my presentation today will be a brief history of footwear. Then I will be discussing basic fitting tips, the Brannock device, Gore-Tex, Vibram, insoles, reference foot care books showing examples of hiking footwear care, treatment of boots, socks, and if time, discuss poles and Gators. I will be reading some of the information referring to my notes and also showing examples, which I was planning to do, but unfortunately, since I'm not on the video, that's not going to work tonight. So that's too bad. That was a important part, but that's just not going to work here. So I want to state first, I'm not a podiatrist, a chiropractor, had professional medical training. So the information I'm going to share with you is a result of years of footwear classes. They were presented by podiatrists, chiropractors, and sales representatives from different footwear companies. Another source was Northwest Podiatric Laboratories out of Washington, which developed the information for training purposes to be used in the REI footwear department. I also use the Mayo Clinic sites and various vendor websites. And another source, which we'll talk about later, I'll be showing you, is Fixing Your Feet by John Vanoff, an incalculable resource for this material, for this presentation. And anybody who has any problems about their feet should take a look at this book. It's really unbelievable. The other person that contributed to this subject has been my coworker, Mike Lanning, who received training from Randy Merrill from Merrill Shoes. Mike's expertise is in the biomechanics of the foot and how it relates to foot problems and shoe boot selection. And he's been doing this about 35 years, somewhere in that area. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is there are 206 bones in the human foot, 26 in each foot, which makes up 25% of all our bones in your body. 30 joints, 106 muscle, tendons, and ligaments that provide support, balance, and stability. So you can see how important the foot is. Unfortunately, I can't show you exactly how that works, but it's very important, obviously, to have the right footwear. The average person takes 7,500 steps a day, which equals over 200 million for an average lifetime if one lives to 80 years old. When our foot strikes, it strikes at 1 times. When our heel hits the ground, it's 1 times the force of our body. So obviously a person who's 150 pounds is coming down with 300 pounds of pressure. Most people take their feet for granted until they have foot pain or have developed problems such as calluses, bunions, bone spurs, hammer toes, etc. I'm hoping with this presentation to provide you with information as to how to protect and prevent injuries and abnormalities to your feet by choosing the proper footwear. If you are experiencing foot pain, it will affect all of your daily activities. In other words, it all starts and ends with your feet. Some interesting, I call it interesting, fast historical footwear facts. Hopefully you'll enjoy them as much as I thought they were interesting. Humans started wearing shoes about 40,000 years ago, much earlier than previously thought per new anthropological studies and research. Uncertain as to when the first shoes were worn, researchers trace it back to 1600, 1200 BC by mountain people living in Iran made of a leather-like moccasin. The earliest known shoes, which I had a picture of that won't help tonight, were made of sagebrush and rope dating back 9,000 to 13,000 years old, found in Fort Rock Cave in Oregon in 1938 by archaeologists from the University of Oregon. The Egyptians, going back in ancient history, of the importance of footwear and shoes. The Egyptians in 1550 BC wore boot-shaped shoes made out of reeds, and the common people wore shoes made out of papyrus, designating their socioeconomic class. The Egyptians' feet were depicted as anatomically correct in all their statues, but usually the left foot was forward. Anthropologists are unsure to this day if it was because the heart was on the left side or artistically it just looked better in the statues. Their left foot was forward to stamping out evil for their god Isis, or that it was a sign that they served in the military. So if you see an Egyptian statue, you'll see either the legs together or one foot will be forward. And that could be possibly where the saying came from, putting your best foot forward came from. So that was the Egyptian. The Greek ideas of foot beauty, or what they call the Greek foot, was a second toe being longer than the first toe, which is now known as Morton's toe. The Greeks used this foot model in their statues. Approximately 25% of the population has this situation where the second toe is longer than the first toe. Artistically, it may have been beautiful, but to the Greeks, it can cause bunions, excessive pronation, and difficulty in finding shoes that fit. So that's still called the Greek foot. And Venus de Milo to the Statue of Liberty, you'll see the second toe being longer than the first toe. So that's what the Greeks thought were beauty. The Egyptians used a ratio that everything had to be perfect, and that's why the Greeks had a different idea on the foot. The Roman military success in conquering vast territories was due partially to re-engineering their sandals. Obviously, their weaponry and other things were to help them, but after the soldiers were coming back from long marches with problems with their foot, they put a wedge under the heel, and that gave them less foot problems. The first clogs made in the Netherlands date back to 1238, and they were designed for farmers and workers. The bottoms were wood and had leather tops like the Romans. They were changed all wood later due to the wet conditions. The wood clogs now are a symbol of the Netherlands, but are rarely worn now and picked up as souvenirs in shops. The importance of footwear even goes to Henry VIII and Louis XIV. They made laws as to what shoes could be worn that were wider and high heels to cover their gout and shortness and height. The first shoe manufacturer in the U.S. was Thomas Beard, a Mayflower pilgrim who nailed together the first pair of shoes in 1628. The original Birkenstocks in Germany were made in 1774 is when they go back to. The same family produces them as when they started. So it's kind of interesting. You could think of Ben Franklin wearing Birkenstocks. And it's fascinating that the same family is doing that. And a lot of the European companies' family continued the traditions of making shoes. The first pair of shoes that were made were left and right were produced in 1818 in Philadelphia. Up to that time, shoes were just made with a straight last. They weren't curved left or right. The first tennis shoes were made by Keds in 1917, and they were called sneakers because they had a rubber bottom, which was considered very quiet. So the advertising company said, well, you can sneak up on people. So they were called sneakers. In 1923, a German man called Adi Dassler, that name might sound familiar, the first name, named a shoe company after himself called Adidas, the largest seller of shoes in the world. Red Wing Shoe Company, a family-owned business founded in Red Wing in 1905. Most shoes people are familiar with Red Wing for their work boots, still make most of their boots in Minnesota. They added Vast shoes that were added in 1964 as one of their founders was on a trip to Europe and saw people were wearing hiking boots, and that became a very popular thing. And to this day, it's funny, people still come in and say, do you have Vasca shoes? And they think they're European shoes. And we go, no, they're not at Target, they're at REI. It is Vask. It's always been Vask, and that's part of Red Wing's hiking boot division. Vibram Bottoms, people are familiar with Vibram Bottoms. They were created by an Italian mountaineer named Vitali Brahmani in 1938, after 6 of his friends died on a hiking trip in the Italian Alps using felt soles. His soles were made with a perfect combination of rubber and foam and are made differently for different activities and continue today with many different types of Vibrams. The other name that you probably are very familiar with, and again, these The shoes that we're going to talk about later can have Vibram soles or Gore-Tex. We'll talk about those materials. Gore-Tex, most people are familiar with Gore-Tex. That change footwear and clothing was created by Bill and Genevieve, and then later the son Bob Gore in 1958. This is the most well-known material used in footwear and clothing, and even been used in spacesuits. This is the first waterproof, breathable material. And in 1979, REI, there were shoes in catalogs and so on, but REI introduced the first Gore-Tex boot made by Danner Company, was sold by REI in a store. Gore-Tex has played roles in all of our lives in many different industries. Yeah, so we're talking about Gore-Tex technology has been used in computers, biomedical devices, sutures, so on, cables, aerospace, filtration systems, Wimbledon's roof, and even guitar strings. So it's, yeah, they've done a lot of different things, and that's why I say they're in many people's lives. Some of the things I was going to show, well, we'll see if I have some things. This is a picture, if it turns out okay. That's a picture of the shoe that they found in the cave in Oregon. This is what the foot looks like. Everyone's seen, skeletons, but it's kind of interesting. The tibula, the fibula, the calcaneus, this bone right here. You can see here that this is open. So for stability, balance, and so on, cuneiforms, all the different parts of the feet. So it's kind of interesting, this magnificent architecture, whatever the foot does so many things for us. Let's see if I missed anything else. Yeah, okay, so we talked about Gore-Tex, and that's then just a couple other history facts. The most expensive pair of shoes sold were a pair of red ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. They were insured for $1 million, but are worth between $2 and $3 million now. Neil Armstrong space boots are not in a museum since they were contaminated and they were left in space, which is kind of fascinating. You would think that they would be in some museum. The difference between shoes and boots made in Asian countries and European countries are that in Europe, there are long family traditions and pride in their craftsmanship. They use better leathers, more expensive machinery to stretch the leathers to take more time to produce fewer, so they produce fewer products. The ones also very important, they can be resold. Not all, but most can be resold. In Europe, in Europe, that is, in Asian countries, they cannot be resold. And I'll show you why, part of it, why you can't resold them. It's materials that they use. Next little section we'll talk about is the growth of the foot. As a lot of our customers don't really quite understand how the feet grow or when they grow and so on. Boys' feet are 80% of their maximum by age 10. The rest of their growth is 15 to 16. This is an average, obviously. Girls' feet are 90% of their growth by age 10 also. The rest of their growth is 13 or 14. Foot growth after that, after 40 years of age, they gain about a half an inch each decade. So occasionally I'll have somebody come in and say, my foot's the same as it was when I was 20 years old. That's impossible. Your whole body changes. Obviously, your foot change. The feet are not really growing. They're actually flattening because the tendons and ligaments, they get weakened and they flatten with age, and thus your foot flattens out this way. So you may have been a really high arch. Now you're a little flatter foot. We all become part of that flatter society. Next, I'm going to describe the Brannock device. There was one more device I remember as a kid that was like a ruler, but the Brannock device really revolutionized fitting. Most people have seen a Brannock device, I would imagine, but the Brannock device measures, as this obviously measures, this measures a foot, this lines up with the foot measurement, and then this measures the width. So by looking at this, then we could tell you're 11, and then where the width comes right here, where this bar hits, that will show you if you're A, B, C, D, or whatever your width is. So that's really interesting. That's tell you a little bit about Brannock. It's used to measure one's feet, determines one's size, their width also. That was invented in Syracuse by a gentleman, obviously Brannock, and he worked, this was his son, he worked for his dad's shoe store. the shoe store no longer exists, but he came up with the Brannock device, and they've sold over 1 million. It's still used today. It's stainless, only one that's made out of stainless steel. There's not one Brannock, obviously. There's one Brannock for men, one for women, one for kids, and one for ski boots. So those are the types of Brannocks. It's really good idea to check that out. Basic fitting tips we'll go over right now. These are really important. Shop for shoes later in the day when your feet are swollen. The worst time to shop for shoes are first thing in the morning. Have your feet measured if you have not done that lately. Again, our feet do change, and particularly for long trips, they even swell within trips. Always have adequate toe room, lower heels, laced or strap closures for any serious things. Obviously, if you're kick around a pullover strap, that can be okay, but for anything serious, bring the appropriate sock that you're going to be using, because obviously that affects the foot. If you have an insole, a particular insole that you have an orthotic, that's very important. And a key thing is obviously fingers width from the end of the toe to the end of the shoe. That might not be your big toe, as we talked about with the second toe being bigger. That then will measure from the second toe. So those are the key things. Oh, the other things we talked about. So always get those biggers. If you are hiking, running, or winter sports, you're doing those type of things, you need more space. So getting them bigger is always better in those types of sports. Now, the exception would be climbing, biking, skating, soccer, where the athlete needs a tighter fit for performance. So that's a whole different thing. Like I said, climbing, you want to feel exactly where your foot is. Soccer, the same thing. But those other running, walking, hiking, winter boots, critical that you get them bigger. The other things, if you read reviews or Backpacker Outside Magazine, we always get people that come in with reviews. That's great. You use that information, that's a good thing to do, but don't go by that information. And I get people that come in the stores regularly. This is a shoe for me. It's and it may be an excellent shoe, and it may be for you, but let the shoe representative look at your feet and see if that is the proper shoe for you. Obviously, try not to order a shoe on the internet. I can't think of a worse product to order on the internet. The foot is amazingly technical, and what you want to do is go into a store and have someone who knows what they're doing, a good sales specialist, to look at your foot, see what's happening, and then match your foot to the wall. Once we determine day hiking, weekend hiking, backpacking, what ailments you have, if you've got any ankles, different things like that, we have to and we talk about that before we do that. So again, unless you have to, you don't have a store that buy you can go into, don't order on the internet, over the internet. The other thing is, just because your cousin or your sister has, hey, this particular shoe is really great for me, doesn't mean that it's great for you. So always do the research is good, but go into the store and talk with a specialist, and they'll recommend the right shoe for you. Another thing that I was in reading today, and I'll show you this book that I got a lot of this information, Fixing Your Feet. We talk about that a quarter inch, your fingers width, or if you jam your foot to the front, you put your finger in the back of the heel, which we do for a lot of kids. That will tell you that it will fit you. For Appalachian Trail, since you're walking for such long distances, your feet strengthen, muscles get a bit stronger in your foot, and your foot swells so much more. You have to get it at least 1 times bigger. One gal was talking about on the Appalachian Trail. She ended up 2 sizes bigger. She started with 11, and she ended up with, or a 9, and she ended up with 11. So either start with a bigger shoe if you're doing long treks, or end up when you get the shoe that it wears out. It wears out after a long period of time, the first 5,000 miles. Order the shoe that's going to be bigger, because your foot will be swollen. There's no doubt about it. The reference book that I wanted to show you, I have an excellent reference book that I told you, we talked about the material I got from this. It explains the different types of problems that people have with their feet, such as plantar fasciitis, bunions, hammer toes, calluses, and how to treat them. This fantastic book is Fixing Your Feet, Injury Prevention and Treatments for Athletes. This is just a great book. Anyone who hikes, or has any questions about the proper footwear, proper socks, hiking poles, anything. This is just unbelievable information in here. I can't recommend that enough. That will help you understand, like I said, the common problems you have and how it relates to fitting a shoe also. Injury prevention, treatment for all the people who are walkers, hikers, climbers, dancers, soldiers, all of that. All of those are, it can help those people with their problems. Regarding insoles or orthotics, now what is the difference? A lot of people say, what's the difference between an insole or orthotic? The difference between an insole or orthotics are that orthotics are typically custom made for your feet and manage specific foot disorders or problems. So if you have one leg shorter than the other, or you have other arthritic type pain in the foot, it may be built up more in the front part of the foot. So that's an orthotic. REI carries several brands, different brands of insoles, and we highly recommend Superfeed. That's the one that different clinics around town, they can carry any type of clinic. And there's clinics that can carry any type of orthotic or insole. They carry Superfeed, which comes from Northwest Podiatric Labs, which we talked about earlier. They started in 1964. A podiatrist started it. They worked over with a million pairs of feet, offering the premium over-the-counter alternative. So they started just doing custom type fits, and then they realized other people, not everybody can afford custom orthotics. So let's come out with the best over-the-counter orthotic we can come out with, and they make many different styles, and these styles all help prevent foot-related injuries and conditions. Regularly, we get customers that come in, like I said, with plantar fasciitis, neuroma, you name it. It's one of my most satisfying things working in footwear is we analyze their feet, give them the proper orthotic, and they walk out, and the next time we see them, no problem. Their foot is totally okay. So that's really a great thing. So I love that. It was founded by a podiatrist, employee-owned company, and it's a very philanthropic company. They go to old age homes and to other places, and they give free orthotics out to people. A question I get asked a lot, and it makes a lot of sense, is why do I have to buy an orthotic? I mean, the shoe is an expensive shoe. Why should I buy that? Or why don't they put in a more expensive insole? And there's a good question on that, and there's a good, easy answer. The price of a shoe, if you put a really good orthotic in or custom insole, it would be a lot more expensive. The other thing is about a third to a fourth of the population of customers coming in have their own orthotic or a custom insole that they have, or they come in with their Superfeed, for example. So why would a company, and particularly in running shoes, so why would a company put a lot of money into an insole when a customer is going to toss it out in about 5 minutes or less than that? So Superfeeds do, like I say, they might not work for everyone. Custom-made orthotics now, they use 3D printers. They can be made in 2.5 hours. Years ago, it used to take weeks. And here's just an example of the different orthotics that they have. Like this one is made of Outlast. Outlast is a heat reflective material. They make a low one. It's a blue color. That's for flatter feet. This one also is for flat feet, or you get it in a dress shoe or skates, that type of thing. The gray one, they make ones for higher arches. This one's for hiking, particularly made for hiking. It has a high strength carbon piece in the back and a cushion right here in the front too. And this piece is thicker too. So this is amazing. For a medium arch, I wish I could wear that. I have a high arch, so I have to wear a green insole. But those are really good. Let's see, we'll show some examples of hiking footwear and how each one is appropriate. And also, I guess when we talk about Gore-Tex a little bit, I don't know if everybody understands really what Gore-Tex is. I don't know, a lot of times people will point to all sorts of things on the shoe, and that's not Gore-Tex. This is what Gore-Tex glove looks like. But it's like a little booty that goes in between the foot. So, and this is a brand new, you're seeing for the first time, this is the new Gore-Tex Invisible footwear. This is pretty cool. This is the whole, I don't know if you can see how this wraps around the foot. It's pretty interesting. So that's the newest and greatest insole. So if we look at a foot, we look at a shoe, Let me show you if I can see and we'll look over that. There's the shoe is made of a couple different parts. The outer sole is the first thing, obviously. Vibram, we talked about Vibram. Vibram is good, but there are many other companies that they're similar to Vibram. Why is Vibram so good? You know the history. They've been doing it a long time. Yeah, it's they do a lot of testing, a lot more testing, just like Gore-Tex does a lot of testing. So that's the outer sole. This is material is called the midsole. This material right here. And better boots, it's rubber. It's made of rubber instead of EVA, so they can be resoled. You've got the insole inside. Actually, I can show you. This is pretty interesting. This is a Danner 2650 shoe that breaks down to pieces. So this is the outer sole. This is how technical a shoe gets. This is a strike plate that goes underneath here. Here's the midsole. We talked about the midsole again. That's EVA, the softer materials. And then here's two different insoles of different materials. They talk about an 8mm offset. That's the drop from the heel to the toe. Most shoes are 8 to 10. Obviously, minimalists are straight across 0. We don't talk about that in hiking that much. That's very important in running. Running shoes, people a lot of times want to know if it's a 0 heel, like an Ultra. People aren't into that as much as they used to be. We don't talk about that in hiking shoes. It's not really an issue, but it is interesting. You can see how the shoe was made and how it's broken down. To see, let's see if I have it here somewhere. I moved it around. This is kind of interesting. This is a last of a shoe. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a last, but this is how a shoe is made. So they're very expensive to make these lasts. This particular one. Someone gave me to show it's a Capezio shoe, an Italian shoe that's obviously a dress shoe, and it's narrow. So when somebody says, well, yeah, I want to get this shoe in a shoe from Hoka, for example, the running shoe company will make them in a little bit narrower width. And I really like this shoe. I wish they would make them in wides. Well, it's very expensive to make these last. So a lot of times companies will make the shoe, see how it goes over, see how it sells. And if it does really well, they'll make a wide last, one of these models. This is really interesting. This is where it goes into. Then the leather is literally wrapped over the top of this. The leathers are put in a room and dried for a certain amount of time. Oh, this is all cut. This is all cut around. And Mike Lanning went to that class where he did all the cutting. He actually made some shoes and then bottoms are put onto them. So it's just fascinating. If you've never seen a last, that's what a last is. So then we're gonna, a couple of parts, we'll see on time here. I'm gonna show, I went over this a little faster than I thought I would, but so we're gonna show examples of hiking footwear and how each one is appropriate, and we'll explain what they're good for. Okay, so my first shoe we're gonna discuss is trail running shoes. Trail running shoes are usually made of lighter nylons. They're usually not waterproof, but there are some that are waterproof for some people, because obviously if people are using it for trail running, their foot is going to be sweating. So we want the foot to dry in that. Trail runners have become huge now in recent times. A lot of Appalachian Trail runners or hikers are using trail runners. Obviously, I would not recommend it for someone probably 40 or over, 50 or older, just because it just doesn't give you the same shock absorption than you would in a shoe that is a little bit higher. Also, it can't keep out the rain and scree and sand. Obviously, if it's getting wet, that wouldn't make a difference as much. But the trail runners have taken over a huge portion of the market, taking over for like backpacking shoes. A lot of backpacking shoes, the market is lessened in the heavier backpacking shoes just for that reason, because a lot of the people like lighter shoes. A couple ounces of weight actually adds up to like 10 pounds of carrying. But again, that's a personal preference. So now the difference on a trail runner, you can see this is a Hoka trail runner. See the bottom on this? It has to bend. It's a trail runner, so it has to bend there. So that you're going to see the difference. So lighter materials, a little bit of bend. A lot of people, again, use it for all sorts of things. I love them for like, doing, Europe vacations, that type of deal. It does a lot of things really well. So trail runners are an important part of our business. They can go from minimalist to really stiff shoes. Then the next example of what I have here is a day hiker. So it's called a day hiker. This happens to be a Lowell Renegade. I love Lowell's. It's a German made shoe. They're just fantastic shoe. Here's your little Vibram. We can Always see the Vibram for everybody recognizes that. We'll talk about Vibram here because people always go, well, Vibram, it's all the same. I want a Vibram sole. Well, there are many, many different, just like Orthotic, there are many, many different types of Vibrams. So shoe companies, the way I understand it, they'll, like Danner, for example, will go to Vibram company and say, I want a number 10. So a number 10 is made for this shoe. There's ones that are, let's say, a little stiffer, that will be a number 20 for somebody, and that those are not the exact numbers, but I'm just saying they would designate what it's for, and then they use the appropriate Vibram. For climbing shoes, obviously the Vibram is softer. Again, Vibram's not magical. It is really great, but Goodyear rubber makes a lot of bottoms. They're pretty good. A lot of companies, just to save on the second party, they're made by a company for them, so they don't have to pay Vibram. Just like Gore-Tex, a lot of companies in footwear and clothing, they also make their own waterproof breathable membrane. Columbia, Omnitech, and all sorts of different high-end companies make their own Gore-Tex type materials that are tested and are very similar. I had an event jacket. It was a DuPont product. I thought it was actually more breathable than Gore-Tex. Now Gore-Tex has come up with new technology to make it just as breathable. But so those other products are good. Obviously, Mountain Hardwear and Patagonia wouldn't use a product unless they thought it was really good. And some companies only use, like Arc'teryx, a high-end company, they'll only use Gore-Tex. So that's how strict they are on their product. So we looked at day hikers. Then we're going to look at a mid-hike boot, or this is called mids. I call them kind of weekend hikers. This particular shoe is from Salomon Company. You don't have to get this shoe. Obviously, it's called the Ultra, one of our most popular shoes. What's the difference on this one, and why would we get this one? Now, this one comes up a little bit higher, so it gives us more protection, keeps out the rain more, squeeze, sand, grit. You don't have to worry about insects, bites, all sorts of things. It has flex, but you see how this is stiffer than the other shoe? Now, again, where are we missing on this shoe? We're missing the magical Vibram. But Salomon, fantastic company, started as a ski company, and then they went into hiking boots later. They use a material called Contra Grip, which is amazing. I have some Salomon shoes, and they're trail runners, hiking shoes. They're great. Contra Grip is not only stiff, but it grips really well. So you can see this shoe would be a step up. I was going to mention, for some people, if they use a day hiking shoe like this, sometimes what they end up doing, if there's really wet conditions, they end up getting a Gator. Most people are familiar with what a Gator looks like. That's this piece right here. So if it's pouring rain, and I've been in Alaska with pouring rain, it's coming down so hard and you have rain pants, guess what's going to happen? It's going to hit your Gator and go right into your shoes. I've had that happen. Not good. So if it's wet conditions that you're going to Iceland, you're going to some place that's going to be
this is
good possibility that's like really wet. Then
it's a Zoom meeting going on right now.
Then a Gator is going to cost you anywhere from $20 to $50, depending upon which one you need. So in a way, you're saving that money, that $50 you're spending, that extra money that you might want to put into that. If some people I just don't want to carry the weight, I don't want the heaviness of this, then they could go with that and then buy the Gator. Obviously, it's going to cost more. To me, this is the most all-purpose because you could use it for everything. It gives you the stability and all the advantages that I told you about. The other thing that's important with these that's nice, because it comes up higher, you can do different lacing techniques. And the different lacing techniques, I'm not going to do it here in front of you, but I'm going to show you kind of how it's done. It's a little bit, let's see, I've got a couple examples of shoes that do that. The lacing techniques, one is, for example, on this one, if someone says, oh, I really like this shoe, this fits really well, I want this to fit, maybe we can do something about that. What I did, I don't know if you could see there in the picture, either you move this lace up to here and give them more room, or you can see I went the laces all the way up. I made a window. We call that a window. So we created a window right here, or lace up. Again, if somebody says, I love this boot, let's try it, or I just have a tight spot right here. Or the other thing I did also, if somebody says, I really like this boot, but for some reason, my heel is slipping a little bit. So what we do is called a heel lock tie. So what that is done is you lace off right here, do a regular lace. And I don't know if you can see the picture. I went straight up through the top hook here. I went straight up here and I went underneath with each lace going underneath here. And then I hook it on the top. So this area right here in the top, you can see that's open. That's open. But when we pull down on these pieces right here, they lock the heel in. They really lock the heel in well. So it's real easy to do if you can't see it exactly here when we get together anytime here. I'll show you how a heel lock tie works. People are familiar that from running shoes. When you use running shoes and they slip a little bit in the heel, what they do is there are two eyelets back here and they run it through the first and they go through the second. Then they'll run the other lace underneath that and pull back. And that's called a heel lock tie. This works tremendously for a lot of different things. I always have my shoes tied this way, particularly for serious hiking, day hiking, that type of deal. That's not a big deal. Again, for day hiking, the trail runner can work, the day hiker can work. If you have ankle or knee issues, maybe the mid height would be a little bit better. Then we go to the backpacking shoe. Again, we said the backpacking shoe, again, stiffer rubber, stiffer midsole, stiffer leather, usually all leather or mostly leather and nylon. You see on this one, the German designed Loa shoes, they have a nylon back. They have a nylon back. And so, are you still here? Yeah, sorry, I had to take a call up. So they have a nylon back. So what's nice about this is this makes a break in a lot easier because this is a big break-in point on hiking shoes. Always obviously take some time to, wear hiking shoes around to make sure that there's not any problems with it for breaking in. The shoes are not the old backpacking shoes, trekking shoes, mountaineering shoes. They're not like the old days as much anymore. There are stiff leathers, but a lot of the leathers, this is a backpacking shoe, pretty good. So yeah, there are still really stiff ones. So they're out there. You can still buy them like an Oslo 520 and some other ones are out there. Now trekking shoes, I'm not a big trekker or mountaineering. So trekking shoes, I brought some examples. This is a Scarpa shoe right here. That's what that looks like. And then mountaineering shoes, probably most people know what mountaineering shoes look like. We carry some, not too many stores carry around it. Seattle and those areas, those stores will have it. This is a La Sportiva Nepal Cube, a mountaineering boot. So that's what that looks like. Yeah. So the differences on these, obviously, and something like this, it's going to be the stiffest sole possible. The leathers and high strength Cordura materials are going to be super abrasion resistant. They're normally going to be insulated. They're actually not as heavy. They used to be heavier. They're a lot lighter than what you would think. Every time when I try them on, occasionally we try different shoes and it's like, I can't believe it, how comfortable they are. So those have gotten a lot better. Again, for somebody who's ice climbing, mountaineering type deals, that's the boot for them. The lug depth, lugs, these are called lugs. The depth of the lug makes a big difference. So the deeper the lug, the more it's going to grip. The tougher it is, the harder the rubber, it's not going to grip on, it's going to wear better, but it's not going to grip as much on slippery surfaces. But like I showed you, the contra grip from Solomon does both really, really well. The height of the boot, yeah, a lot of times people talk about the height of the boot. Again, the most important thing for the height of the boot, because someone will say, I want a boot that's a little higher. That doesn't really make as much of a difference that a boot is a little bit higher. Basically, the most important thing on a boot really is just like a house. The foundation of the house is the most important. So the outer sole, the strength of that, and the midsole, the rubber, those are the big differences. Now, again, will this help? Will this give you more strength? For sure. If you get hit on the outside, your foot's not going to collapse as much. So definitely, if you have ankle problems, knee problems, any issues like that, this midsole, this mid height or weekend hiker, they call them mids, usually mid heights, will help you with that issue. So that's why I like selling them so much. They cover so many things and they do it so well. We talked about the differences, Vibram, like I said, Gore-Tex, again, there's different types of Gore-Tex and so on, but midsole reinforcement, some shoes, the heavier boots will have midsole reinforcements. As far as boot repairs, we recommend around town, our experience, and in my experience of taking my shoes and other shoes, we recommend George's in St. Paul and on Grand Avenue. They're great. Fred's, Nokomis, Fast Eddie's. And if you want the best in the United States, send them to Dave Page Cobbler in Seattle. Dave Page Cobbler is unbelievable. He carries Oslo bottoms. They trust him that much. And Dave Page, there was a mountaineer, Edwin Mallory, I think it was his name. He disappeared many, many years ago. His body was lost for many years. Well, they found his shoes. They sent his boots, whatever, to Dave Page Cobbler. He recognized them as Mallory's boots. That's how much the knowledge this guy has. It's unbelievable. So care and treatment of shoes and boots and waterproofing. Obviously, there are liquids, there's sprays, there's paste, there's all sorts of different things that you can use. Number one, I want to tell you, do not recommend mink oil or snow seal. These are things that older hikers, we grew up with that. They actually use solvents that can damage a shoe's longevity and waterproof. Do not use those. The recommended products that we have and other stores have are Nick Wax or Granger's. Now, the type of product that you pick out, and I'll show you these different ones. This is a footwear cleaning gel if you need to clean your boot. Here's a Granger's fabric and leather, like I showed you, a fabric and leather. There's one, the conditioner for leather and waterproofer. Just fantastic. Yeah, baking soda. Somebody sent in about baking soda. Yeah, pull out the insoles, let a shoe dry out naturally. Obviously, never wash, just never wash a shoe. Actually I should say wash a shoe, but what you want to do is put in a laundry basin, or just get some water in a little bucket or little where you would wash your foot, a little tub, and take some water on a scrub brush and just scrub it off. Never throw it in the dryer. Pull out the insole, shake it out, and then again, like I said, this product, conditioner for leather. Yeah, George's is in Arden Hills. Thanks for that information. They expanded. Yeah, family-run business. I think I know him well. I know the grandfather, father, whatever. This is about fourth generation. They're just great people. They do hockey, the NHL hockey equipment for the Wild too. They're unbelievable. Yeah, conditioner for leather. This is the product that I use for sure. Never with boots to have them last longer too. Never keep them in a hot place, not even a car trunk. Sometimes I would put them in the trunk and say, hey, why not? I'm ready for a hike afterward. Well, that heat can separate a boot. It separates the material. In fact, we have customers that come in and say, I barely wore this boot, but it's 8 years old. And why is it falling apart? Well, what happens is a lot of boots are heat molded or glued together. Well, the glue's adhesive just starts separating. And so on a good boot like this, obviously, it can be resoled. You can see the separation here. You just have to make sure you do that before it gets into this material. If anybody has Chaco sandals that now they're familiar with that Chaco, you can literally take off the bottom on most of their sandals, and then they'll send them back to the company, and $40 they resole them. So the better shoes, again, can be resold. There is a company that I found about today that actually will resole. They're called www Soles for Soles. They'll resole even your cheaper shoes, but they don't last as long. And there's another company, 3D, what else? I'll have to look that up, but it's actually you can send your shoes to third world countries. So that's kind of cool too. So again, like I said, that's the most important product. Do you need to treat waterproof shoes right away? No, you do not. They're waterproof. They're Gore-Tex, and there's an outside treatment, the factory treatment. The most important thing is the conditioner. People always ask that conditioner. You can treat them before you don't have to. How do you know when footwear is worn out? I should have kept my shoe that I just tossed out. Always check the wear pattern on the back of the shoe. You can see this is still in great shape. If it's angled in any way, you can see that in running shoes, and you can start feeling in your hip because you're landing improperly. If it's angled in any way, or the back of the heel counter, this heel counter, you can see it start ripping. These are critical areas. Then it's not going to hold your foot in. Your heel's going to start sliding. So that's just not going to work for you. So the wear pattern in the back of the heel. And obviously it could be resoled great. We talked about cleaning. In the wintertime, if you're wearing your shoes through the winter, I wear my hiking shoes all season. If they see gray or silver on it, that's chemicals. Wash that off. That kills a boot. That destroys the boot. So wash that off and put some treatment on it. We're running kind of late, so I'll just talk quickly about socks. Most people are familiar with socks. Cotton is rotten or cotton kills, so stay away from cotton. A lot of people like wool. It just depends on your metabolism. Wool, synthetic, let's see, wool will keep your feet warm, natural fabric. It doesn't smell as much, but it dries slowly. Synthetic, my favorite, it's cooler, lighter, wicks and dries quicker. There's woolen synthetic socks by Darn Tough, which is a great company. You wear out your socks, you send it back, they'll send you a new pair. Sounds like a gimmick. It is not. If you buy Darn Tough, it's actually got higher thread count than Smart Wool. They'll send you a new pair. It's a nice blend of both wool and synthetic, and it gives strength and wicking. Liner socks are good at preventing blisters as they wick moisture to the outer sock. So all the experts I read in these different books too, is they all recommend not day hikes, not weekend hikes, even so much, maybe unless it's strenuous day or weekend, liner socks. Liner socks are just great. Thin, synthetic type socks. People can use wool. Synthetic works better to me. Compressor socks, I think most people know about compressor socks. They come up higher. They keep a better your blood circulating from pooling, especially for long trips. I love compressor socks, especially for long hikes, long plane rides, that type of thing. Gore-Tex booties are expensive. That's something if you're stepping into water, either get them. That's a good question too. Either if you're going into water, a lot of people just get non-waterproof shoes. Boundary waters, I want waterproof. No, you don't. You want water to go in and out. If you're just stepping in, like, just a couple inches, then you could get a one boot. If you say, I don't want to get one boot for boundary waters and one boot for something else, that's different. Or you can use a Gore-Tex bootie. They're kind of expensive, but they're good for rafting, kayaking, that type of thing too. Poles and gaiters, we know about poles and gaiters. It's getting late, so I'll just say poles are a great thing to use if you're a steep ascent or descent. If you're having ankle or knee issues, it just shifts the weight to your arms. They're made in all sorts of different weights, packable, they're bent back, so they're easier to grip. Check to see in your hiking destination if you can use them. Machu Picchu, you could. You might have to use a soft tip or not even allow it because of the erosion problem. Gators, I showed you the Gators. That's a great thing to do. Use a Gator if you don't want to use a high shoe or just want to use your low shoe and bring a Gator just in case. There's a couple different types of Gators. Low Gators are used for trail running, summertime hiking, water repellent. They're medium height that are waterproof and more abrasion resistant nylon. They keep out the trail debris, rain, and snow. And there's the high height Gators are made of Cordura Gore-Tex membrane used in rugged conditions like snow or brush, or if you're going off trail, anytime going off trail in the snow or not. This is the end of my presentation. I hope you walk away from this, no pun intended, with a better understanding of the importance of proper footwear selection and how it can play a key role in making sure your outdoor activities are both safe and comfortable. I wish you all happy trails, and I'm willing to answer any questions that you have. Obviously, if it's a technical thing with medical conditions, I could talk about how we address that with with the lacing techniques that I showed you, but we can't get into detail unless we have some nurses on the line. They could get more into issues like that of what you can do about foot issues. So that's about it. Any questions that anyone has about anything that I covered today? And also there are products for synthetic. These companies, ReviveX and these other companies I showed you, Grangers, make great products for washing Gore-Tex jackets out, and that are really filthy dirty. They don't work as well because they're clogging the Gore-Tex. They do an unbelievable job of cleaning them and they make them like brand new and washing waterproofers. So they're what is a Gator? Somebody asked me a Gator. It's not a crocodile. A Gator, sorry, I had this earlier. A Gator is a piece like this. It's usually, again, $25 to $50. A Gator is a piece that hooks over the top of the shoe. And so I would have this hook over the top of the shoe, and that would hook over the top, and then your foot goes inside there. And then it's hard for me to show. I can't show you here, but in person I could show you how that works. You slide your foot into that, and so the Gator goes on the top. And so when rain hits it's a rain pants, so it'll hit the Gator and then just go off. So again, Gators are nice if you want to use just a hiking shoe and you don't want to buy a mitt. Gators are really nice. They pack up really easily. So it's a great great add-on for your trip. Or like I said, it's very lightweight. Any other questions that anyone has about anything else that I mentioned today?
I have a question, Pat.
Sure.
Hi, so I came in really late. I had a conflict with another Zoom meeting.
Sure.
But I need hiking boots. And
Okay.
so my first question I put in the chat is this meeting being recorded where I can sit and listen to it again?
It is.
Okay,
It,
great.
it is.
I'll,
Okay.
I'll look for it on the Rover site, I would assume. And then the second question, you probably told everybody this, but I thought
That's okay.
from the bio, you work at REI. So
You're correct.
I was wondering which shop you're at.
Okay, I'm at the big store at the the Bloomington location. I'm there only part-time. I just start going into part-time. I'm semi-retired, so I'm not there as much as I used to be. If you want to come in and see me, just call and ask if I'm on the schedule, like I'm on Thursday night or what. If you want to come in and see me, we have two other experts that are really good too. Mike Lanning is the one I talked about who made shoes with Randy Merrill. He's considered when there's footwear questions that come up. Mike Lanning is referred to in the paper. Actually, they actually go to Mike Lanning. Mike's an excellent boot fitter, and Amy. Mike has 30 years. Amy Akers is excellent. And obviously, I've had many years of footwear training and so on. So any of us, if obviously you want to see any of us, everyone else is really good, but we're the three experts, and I can't imagine too many footwear departments that have the years of experience that all of us have combined. So yeah, if you're going to walk out with an excellent choice for sure. We, like I said, we measure your foot, we look at your foot, we take all those things into consideration, ask about different issues that you may be having, and then we pick the right shoe for you. And obviously it's guaranteed a year. So if you have a problem with anything, you can bring it back. That doesn't happen too often. We get shoes that are returned, but that's another story. If they're buying them too short or whatever, there's obviously people can have issues. They feel comfortable in the store, they go out and it doesn't feel quite right. Any other questions about it? And yeah, so I'd love to, anyone comes in with the Rovers, obviously. Yeah, I do have, if somebody comes in the store, I sent out, I do have some coupons still available. I have I think it's a 15% discount, something like a 15-20% discount. So anybody comes in the store on Thursday, I have some of those for any Rovers members that come in. First come, first serve. I sent some out for people who gave me the address. So if you come into the store, I'll have them Thursday night. Come in and you can get some discounts. It's not on all products, but yeah. So I'm available to give you that also. Any other questions about anything else that
I have a
covered?
fitting question. I have a size 16 shoe. Mine grew a little bit too as it flattened out with age.
Yeah.
So I've been having trouble getting a cross-country ski boots. I keep patching my old ones up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not one thing. I've sold many different types of shoes in all the years. I've sold Western boots. I've sold work boots. I ran Sears work boot department for a couple of years. I never have dealt with ski boots. So I'm not sure. I know there are couple companies that like Keen. People know Keen because Keen's run on the wide side, and they know from the Keen sandals. I'm pretty sure, go up to 16 if I can remember right. And I think a couple other companies. Unfortunately, a lot of companies are slow to recognize that people's feet are getting bigger and bigger. I mean, kids are bigger, and as we age, our feet flatten out. So unfortunately, I think a lot of companies are still on the old ordering things where, well, for example, I'll give you an example. The average size foot for a woman was about, 10 years ago or more, let's say it was about 7.5, somewhere in that area, maybe 8, somewhere in there. Now the average size foot of a woman is about 8.5. For men, it used to be 9.5. Now it's about, I'd say 10 is about the average, 10.5. We run out of like 11s, 12s, what are those bigger sizes very quickly. And unfortunately, the shoe companies they haven't come to that realization that, in fact, for the first time ever in this last year or two, we carry 11s in women's shoes. Yay! That's a great thing because we never had 11s. Some European companies, obviously, European companies' feet are a little bit different. It depends, like Italian shoes or Italian people's feet are a little bit narrower. It depends on what they are. Germans a little taller, whatever. Usually European shoes are a little bit narrower. Their feet are a little bit narrower. They're not as wide, big people as here in America. We overeat a little bit more. We have bad diets. Our feet are bigger. People are bigger. That's changing in Europe. But partly the styling too of European is narrower. They like the styling. So that's something. Solomon shoe is a European shoe, a French shoe. You can get shoes that are made a little wider. The companies are obviously smart. They want to sell their shoes to American customers. But a lot of the shoes, La Sportiva, family-owned company, Solomon, Lova, Oslo, make their shoes a little narrow, but they do make them wider. But there is a company, it's Hitchcock. It came to my mind, Hitchcock, like Alfred Hitchcock. I don't think make hiking boots, but look them up for you. They make oversized shoes, oversized boots. You have to order them online. But your problem is getting addressed a little bit better. Shoe companies are listening to what we're having to say. A lot of companies and women's feet, kids, whatever, feet are getting bigger, wider, and the selection is getting better. That's all. It's definitely a lot better than it used to be, for sure.
There used to be a place on 94, almost towards Hudson, on the north end of the freeway. They just sold like ski stuff and ski boots and stuff. I don't know if they're around anymore or not.
Well, there was a work boot company called Roberts also that was down.
Yeah, Roberts. He retired. He retired. Yeah,
they were on Broadway. They went out of business, as did some of the other work shoe companies. They carried like sizes up to whatever 20
yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, Schuler's is good for like a lot of large shoes. They're very good.
Large shoes and wider widths, absolutely. So
but the other question, there was in shoe inserts, and I saw you had sole inserts, SOLEs, and they have.
Yeah, I love sole. Yeah, sole are really nice. The difference between sole and sole makes different insoles. Also, depending upon, again, the same thing. If you have a flat foot, if you have a high arch, the difference with sole is all about cushion. It's about cushion. There obviously is stability in the cushion, but I feel like I have sole and I use them, and I've used them at work. A lot of times I'm on the concrete for long days. I think they work. I just like all the features of the super feet. What I always tell people is just, try different insoles and see what works for you. I mean, super feet do make this particular one that I have, this green. They do, that has more cushion to it. This one does have more cushion, and obviously they come in men's and women's. And so, but it's not going to be as cushion as sole. And sole, you actually could put in the oven, and then you put your foot on it, and just make sure your wife doesn't come in or somebody go, "What are you cooking there?" And see an insole, and they don't taste good. You don't want to put mustard on them or anything. But yeah, so you put them on, and then they mold to your foot. I think soles are very good too. I just don't like them. I think the construction of the super feet is a little bit better, and that's why Tria, they only carry their orthotic and super feet. So I really believe in super feet. I think it's a great company. But if sole works for you, you need a little bit more cushion. Absolutely. I mean, there's other insole, Spanko and Dr. Scholl's and so on, but I think super feet are they're considered kind of the best, one of the best over the counter, if not the best over the counter one. But yeah, sole are really good. If you're really, cushion really makes a big difference to you, and you have foot issues that you need that cushion for sure. Yeah, if you have problems with your feet with cushion, I highly recommend Hoka shoes. I showed you the Hoka samples. Hoka is all about cushion. So for people that have really pain in their feet, you can see this big piece right in here. That's all cushion. So for people coming off of, we sell a ton of these. They make about 25 different styles. So if you're having plantar fasciitis, neuroma, all sorts of arthritic conditions and stuff, these are amazing. Again, because it's all about cushion. They have a nice rocker to it. They're known for their running shoes, but they make we have their hiking shoes and other things. For pain, like I said, besides selling super feet, I love selling these in a lot of ways because, again, customers come back and say, I don't have pain anymore. Nurses come in about every other day. I get nurses coming in, teachers that stand on their feet for Danskos used to be really popular. These have taken kind of the role of Danskos. A lot of people use good tennis shoes also, but you're having foot pain and you need cushion. These work fantastic, Hoka shoes. Yeah, they're really great too. Any other questions? I don't know if I missed a question when I was answering you there. Any other questions about anything else that I talked about? maybe not. Maybe and you guys now you know the difference between Greeks and Egyptian statues now. So I gave you a little history of that. It's unbelievable, all the different things of that go into footwear. Let's see, can you tell us about spikes? Spikes for shoes. Okay. We weren't really talking about spikes. I did forget about that. Thanks for mentioning that. I don't have the mountaineering boot with me today, but with mountaineering boots, yeah, you are going to use spikes. You are going to use, they're called crampons. Shoot, I should have brought my crampon. People are, an easy way to think of a crampon, when you're, probably most of us for winter walking, we use those little cleat type pieces that we put on that have spikes. They can be twisted kind of like a metal. There's and a bunch of different companies make them, but those are really great for walking. But what crampons are, it's kind of like that, but it's a lot heavier duty. So for shoes like this, like a mountaineer, it has to be a backpacking, a trekking shoe, or a shoe like this that's a mountaineering. Then they use crampons. Crampons will hook over the front of the shoe, they go over the front of the boot, and then they hook over the back. Crampons have long, sharp metal steel pieces. What crampons do is for ice climbing, they dig into the ice. And so crampons are used for ice climbers, and they're used by anyone who's serious, who's doing Rainier, you name it, any kind of area that's treacherous. Crampons will be used. And we said we don't really sell crampon. We sell the traction devices for people who want to come in and use those just for their walking shoes. And for people who are walking in slippery conditions, they can put a crampon on their hiking shoe to get a little better grip. I use them sometimes in the winter time too, but crampons will be a whole different thing that's sold in our climbing department in the front of the store, crampons. And again, I'm not an expert in crampons, but there's all sorts of different lengths and different crampons or widths that you can use in crampons, but very useful, something you have to have for mountaineering, maybe trekking, and it can be used on a backpacking. It just has to be a very, very stiff shoe. It can't be on a nylon shoe. Why? It can't bend. You can't put a crampon on a shoe that's bending. That's not going to work. So a crampon has to go on either a backpacking shoe, like I showed you, that's very stiff, like the Loas, like these guys. It has to really give you good, like that, so it will not bend, or the other shoes I showed you pictures of. That's what a crampon is used for. Not as common. We don't get as many people, but we do get customers coming in that are going to Rainier and wherever. We get people from all over the world that are going hiking and mountain climbing. So yeah, thanks for the question on crampons. What about replacement laces? Yeah, absolutely. Always carry a replacement lace, no doubt about it. It's a good idea because if they tear. I didn't talk about speed laces. There are some shoes with speed laces, and Solomon is famous for their speed laces. Speed laces can work. The only difference on a speed lace, don't have a shoe with the speed laces, it has to fit you just right. If you have a heel, your heel is a little bit narrower. A speed lace, which I don't have, most people are familiar from Keen sandals and so on. They use their own speed lace. It just pulls up. You can't do any adjustments. So if you have a narrow heel, speed lace is probably not going to work for you. And you can't do any lacing techniques because it is what it is. And can you get a replacement for them? They're made of Kevlar-like material. So we do get that question. Are these going to break on me? Very unusual for speed laces to break on a good Solomon shoe. But that's a negative thing about speed laces. With regular laces, you typically don't have to worry about wearing that much, but it's always recommended, like you do with different things, bring some duct tape, just in case you bring an old shoe in there and it separates. Bring duct tape. If you get blisters, you can duct tape over the back of your foot there, right onto the blister and so on. Obviously, and then with the lacing, like I said, make sure the laces are all in good shape. They're not frayed. You can get these through. And if you have to replace them, obviously you can replace the lace on a trail. For sure, Appalachian Trail or any long hikes, that's definitely recommended. Again, you can see how this is laced a little bit differently. This is a heel lockdown tie where I have the pieces here and then this pulls back. So even in a low shoe, I can get it a little bit tighter. And again, if somebody wants to see that in person more and how you do that, I can show you, but they just work great. And again, not on a so much a casual hike, but more for, more extensive hiking, the day hiking or weekend, they're doing longer hikes. I would use that technique for any of those types of hikes. It just works fantastic. Oh, and I did say too, if you try the shoe and we do the different techniques and they just don't seem to work, give up on the shoe. It's just like, oh, I want this to work. It just doesn't work. Try another shoe. We're not, it's just not good to force, just like, I want this to work. No, it just doesn't work for some reason. The volume of your foot, we're looking at the volume of your foot, which is really critical. We want the boot, here's your foot. We want the boot to fit like that. If there's too much volume, literally it pushes down from the tongue and you can get pressure on the top of the foot. So when we look at the foot at REI or good shoe places, they'll look at it and see your volume. They know all the shoes on the wall like we do. And we'll say, yeah, your foot should match up to these particular shoes. Again, so you want that volume to be right. If you have really low volume foot, like Keens are pretty low volume, that will fit your foot pretty well. Because again, we want your foot to do this. We don't want all this material on top. So volume of the foot is a very critical area. Obviously, if you have any scar tissues, things like that, there's different lacing techniques that I showed you we can work around and hope to prevent that. Bunions, obviously, we can do things, getting a wider shoe and different ties to get around bunions also. So any other questions, any other written questions that anyone has that I didn't cover? Let's see if there's anything else coming. Nothing else? You guys are all semi-experts, right? Or at least you're a lot more. I hope at least, like I said, that you're a lot more knowledgeable. We didn't talk about different conditions, and obviously what I was talking about is having the shoe wider. You can prevent and having the good fit. Obviously, the fit in the heel is so critical. You're not going to get the blisters, the bunions, those type of things. You're not going to get those problems if you get the shoe that's wide enough in the toe. So that's really critical. Wide in the toe, the heel cup nice and tight. Yeah, you're welcome, Karen. Anything else that you can think of?
I have a question. This is Carlene.
Sure.
I stuck it in the chat, but I'm not sure you can see it. It's about narrow
Absolutely.
width. I was interested to hear you say that feet are getting wider and larger.
Absolutely.
And I
Sorry.
just stopped seeing. Yeah, it's bad for me. I've stopped seeing a widths. I mean, as a matter of fact, a lot of shoes don't even have widths indicated on them.
Right.
When it comes to hikers, does anyone make narrow width women's day hikers?
There are probably ones that are available out there. Off the top of my head, I know we carry in different widths. Let's see, in narrow, I think Lowa, L-O-W-A, that I showed you that I have a couple of shoes by Lowa. They're an amazing company. Like I said, my shoes have lasted 8 to 10 years. I don't get a lot of questions for narrow. European companies would be your best bet to look at. Again, Lowa, I know I definitely carry backpacking shoes. I don't know about the other shoes as much, but Oslo, it's spelled A-S-O-L-O, Oslo. It sounds like Oslo. That's a fantastic company. Solomon is a French company. So they have narrow feet because of course, they're French. They have to be look style. And so that's important. So they have narrow shoes. La Sportiva, an Italian company. Those are the companies that I would look at. And I don't mean to say they're not making narrow shoes. They are making narrow shoes, but what companies look at, I mean, and like I said, European companies were made for Europeans at first, but as they came into the American marketplace, they realized they had to make wider shoes. So there are narrow shoes available. There are extra wide shoes available just for the American marketplace. Yeah, wider shoes for men and women are becoming more popular. But I would try those companies, see online if we carry those. If we don't have it, I would go directly to those companies and say, do you have anything that's in an A width? One thing, a solution for you, if you can't flat out get an A width, socks. Socks. Yeah, socks can make a huge difference with fitting your shoe. So if you get a liner sock, put a wool sock in there, you can fill the shoe. So that might be, I'm sorry to say, that might be a big part of your answer. If you can't get a hold of shoe, we've got some pretty narrow shoes from those European companies. You put in the right socks, they really work well. Yeah, and like I said, that with the socks again, that's all personal preference. What you feel comfortable. I'm probably the only synthetic guy on the staff. Everybody loves wool, but I'm not a wool. I pull out the wool when it gets cold. I love my synthetic socks. Always liner synthetics. Outer. If it gets cold, put a wool over the top. But the 2 layers are really good. And I didn't talk about Right Socks. Right Socks, fantastic socks. People know these from running socks. No blisters guaranteed. They say that on the package. And it's true for runners. There's no blisters guaranteed. If you get a blister, bring them back. They'll give you a new sock. We'll give you a new sock, send it back. They'll give Right Socks have, if you can see in this picture, what's that white? That's a liner. That's literally a liner. So this is a 2 layers of polypropylene or synthetic. So the most key thing for avoiding blisters is getting that synthetic material next to the skin, wick away. Almost impossible to get blisters if you have a 2-layer sock. So what some people will do, I've done 2 different things. I find them a little bit warmer and they take a little longer to dry if they happen to get wet. I either do this, use the liner. Most people use liners. You could use wool. I think to me, it makes sense to use not even silk. Use polypropylene or Cool Max. That will wick and dry quicker. Or you can use this. Some people like this because they feel there's going to be less slippage between this and the top sock. I've never had that problem where I've had slippage between this, but you can get definitely friction between your foot and the shoe. So I definitely, not day hikes, weekend, extensive, long day hikes, I definitely always recommend these socks. They really make a big difference. The other cool thing about these, your foot is sweaty and stuff like that, you don't have to wash the sock. You wash this sock. Who cares about the other sock? This sock is next to your foot. Air this out at the end of the day, and the same thing with the outer sock. I like the REI socks, but we have lots of socks that are real good that are polypro. You just air these out and they're pretty much dry. When you start wearing them, they dry out quickly. Or like I said, I showed the Darn Tough that it has a wool and synthetic. That will dry quickly too. It's got both things, wool and synthetic. And when you wear the sock out, bring it back, send it back. They'll send you a new one. I asked the rep that came in 2 years ago, she said 2 years, send it back. Guaranteed. Yeah, merino wool. They all use merino wool. Like I said, a more higher thread count than smart wool. They're really good too. If you like that, my personal preference is to go with just a liner sock. That's just me. And all these experts I've read in all the books and stuff, they say use a liner sock or go with the 2-layer Right sock. Great running socks, great for other things. And they make different weights of these. There is a heavier one for colder temperatures. And then obviously the wool, I always have separate socks for when I go to the camps, and separate clothes when I'm camping overnight. I'm not wearing the same sweaty socks they wear all day. So I'll have a wool or a separate sock that I'll put on at camp. But socks are critical. Always have a couple pairs of socks. You need to change your socks. You can't hike in wet socks. I mean, sometimes in some of this fixing your footwear, some people are saying it's almost more important to have socks is more critical than even the right shoe. They're both pretty critical, but your socks are really, really important. So find out what works for you. If synthetics work for you or wools work for you, or use that combination that I will. Use the synthetic liner, the Right sock, and maybe the wool in colder temperatures, or if you like wool better, then go with wool. So kind of a long answer, but definitely I can't recommend those enough for sure. So any other questions that anybody has about anything else?
Well, I was just going to mention for the lady who was looking for narrow, I don't know if
Sure.
New Balance makes any technical type shoes, but they have an amazing amount of narrow and wide selection.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I send a lot of people over. They've trouble with the Schulers. They're a casual shoe company. They're casual. They don't have hiking shoes. Am I right? I haven't been there for a while.
Schulers, yeah.
Schulers, their specialty is really casual shoes. If she's talking about hiking shoes.
Yeah, no, I was talking about New Balance, but I don't know if any of those would qualify for this, but I know they have a lot of, you can get a lot of widths with them.
Oh, absolutely. And I send customers all the time because we have some widths, not so much narrow, but their specialty is is definitely more casual shoes, but
Yeah, it's not probably for like backpacking or anything like that. But
Yeah, they
maybe
might
for
have a
day
New
hiking or
Balance.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, they might have a New Balance shoe that's a trail running shoe. They possibly, because they are New Balance, that's their big deal. But they might have a trail
Oh,
running
okay.
shoe that's narrow.
Oh, okay.
I would
Cool.
recommend if she's looking for trail running, yes. Anything else at Schuler's, probably not. Any kind of a hiking thing, I would recommend those companies that I'm talking about. If we don't have them, go directly to the companies. There's reps you can get a hold of and say, hey, I need a La Sportiva, new, or whatever the shoe is. I need it in narrow. Can you ship me this narrow? Unfortunately, obviously, sizing is really difficult. It's hard to know what sizing is like. Like I said, I didn't recommend shipping shoes, but if you can't really find them here, then maybe that's your answer, is just to go to these companies or a Hitchcock or some company. I think Hitchcock is more work shoes and casual, so that might not work. It might be more kind of a La Sportiva, and those European companies is really your best bet. And either going through us or Midwest Mountaineering, I'll mention them. They mention us. They send people. We send people there. They're a good resource. Or like I said, getting a shoe. We have some narrow shoes, and then making a difference with the socks. The sock really does make a huge difference in filling in the boot and making your foot feel comfortable. That's for sure. Anything else? I was trying to think of anything else. I had a grab bag of different things, but I think I've showed most of my grab bag of all my. Oh, what was the question from Kim or something? Yeah, somebody recommended the right socks. Yeah, I think they're great too. Again, if your feet get a little bit warmer, then stick with the synthetic liner sock, or just any light synthetic instead of the right socks still keep your feet cool, but they're a little bit warmer, obviously, because they're 2-layer versus the single Cool Max or Polypro. Cool Max is just a step up from Polypro. So you say Polypro, Cool Max, synthetic, they're pretty good, but Cool Max is the best of the synthetic products for sure. But they're always coming out with new products that are newer and newer and better or whatever. Sure.
Thanks for answering all the questions, Tom.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Very informative. Yeah.